Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bobbacast Sessions. This season's podcast is hosted by Elysse and Vado, and we will be focusing on some of the hot issues that take place throughout the mass multiplayer online game for teens, Habbo Hotel. Are you a boy or a girl?
This is one of the questions that Habbo has asked new users since it first opened their doors in 2001. Why, you ask? Well, simply because when they first introduced this game, they coded it with binary clothing. Male or female. Options were slightly different across the two genders, with the most obvious difference being that the female clothing had the shape of breasts pixelated into the shirt. There was, of course, some other variances, such as different hairstyles between male and female avatars, and heels and skirts on offer for females.
As the new generation openly explores identity in a way that embraces gender fluidity, Habbo has finally taken some steps towards a more gender-inclusive system for their clothing, as Habbo rolls out an update to the gender-locked requirement of some items, including some popular hairstyles, skirts, and shoes.
My name is Elysse, also known as LC22 on Habbo.com, and I'm joined today by Josh, also known as Vado on Habbo.com. As we launch Season 2 of Bobbacast Sessions. It's been a long time coming.
Season 2! Season 2, I'm so excited. Yes, and so ready.
Together, we will be chatting about this clothing shift in this episode and what we believe the future of Habbo clothing should or could look like. What do you think about this, Josh? What does this mean for you as a player? Being able to wear skirts or heels? Because you've got the male avatar on most of the time, right?
I usually use the male avatar. Sometimes I use the female avatar, but with this change, it makes the options of expressing who you are and what is going on a day-to-day basis in your mind. You can actually show that through expression of a wider variety of clothing. So it makes the experience so much more exciting because I can show what I feel.
Absolutely. And we're recording this today. Obviously it's going to be released a bit later, but we're recording this the day that the Met Gala's just been launched. And if that's not a spectacular display of where the current social norms are around gender fluidity and different clothing styles between genders, I don't know what is. And I just think it's really fitting that we ended up recording it today.
Yes, you can make as many looks as you want, recreating celebrity styles, and you don't have to have one gender to do it.
I know I'm really into the Project Runway cosy change scene on Habbo, so for me that's gonna really make a huge difference to the way that I edit my outfits for these games and interact in that community space, whereas prior to that we had far less options and I was often having to change my avatar to suit the style that I had in my mind, to the point where I'd get sometimes halfway through a look on a female avatar, which is my default because I identify as female, and then I'd get halfway through, realize that the clothes that I was looking for weren't actually on that avatar, and I'd have to switch the gender of my character so that I could finish the look the way that I had in my mind, which, either says I know far too much about Habbo clothes or that I'm really quite a perfectionist in what I envision and showing it to my friends, even if it's in a game.
But I think that goes to show that you can now elevate those ideas and that creativity of the look that you're trying to accomplish by having the wider variety of options. So it shouldn't matter, and I think that's the point of the discussion today, is that it doesn't necessarily matter what gender you identify with. You can wear an item of fabric. It shouldn't be identified by a gender.
Yeah,
Did that make sense?
No, I think so. It's not, it doesn't have the stigma associated with it in the way that it might have 10, 20 years ago. And let's be real, Habbo is 23 years old this year. It's not a young game, and for it to be moving with the times, I think it's really important, because if they want to keep getting in new audiences, they need to acknowledge that maybe the audience they designed this game for 23 years ago, while some of them are still around, I'll admit, they're not the primary audience anymore, and that is a shifting value in society.
Absolutely, and it begs the question, does that mean that these outdated systematic binary choices are no longer important or relevant in society?
Yeah, I think a lot of the games that are being designed now are definitely not considering binary choices in the same way. It's not to say that they don't have options of who do you identify as female or male, but it's that they have systems set up in place for changing the way that you dress depending on it, and not locking you out of one like item of clothing versus the other. Like if you look at the Bitmoji avatars, right? Obviously you have different clothes across the two, but you can absolutely change the way in which your features are defined. So as a female, I can choose to have a flat chest, even though generally people might want other sizes.
That brings it back to just real life, and that everyone on this planet is unique and different, and they each have their own identity. However, it can also be what you envision your life to be, you know, which is why we go online and we create avatars and identities of ourselves that we want to portray to our friends or strangers, and it might be a completely new person that you just want to try out. So to have the options available now online as we do in real life, it just feels like a very natural progression with life, with just the way society is moving to this is now normal, because it should be, because there's no reason. For centuries now, men have been wearing long fabric dresses because it's fabric. There's, like you said, there's a stigma around wearing a dress and that it's girly, or even color. Even color is a big thing these days.
Or makeup as well.
Pink makeup, exactly. Like turn on Kiss and you have men covered with makeup.
Absolutely.
And so these days, it's not looked down upon anymore because we've progressed as a society.
Man, I would love some more makeup options that were like unisex in Habbo, but that's a side note.
Well, I think that it's moving in the right direction. So, you know, this is something that was highly requested throughout Habbo Twitter in 2021 when there were a lot of changes coming to Habbo. They were actively listening to the users, you know, what they wanted on the game, and it's finally coming through. It's finally being updated. What do you think about the turnaround time on actioning this? You know, it's 2 years in the making to make some clothes unisex.
I will say, like, I'm very glad that they've finally pushed something through. And shout out to Hannah Yeep Habbo on Twitter, who posted this big awareness tweet that got so much traction, so much attention, and I'm sure was part of the reason why it actually caught the attention of like the people making decisions at Habbo, because she made this whole thread about what the differences were between male and female clothing at the time. And some of it's been changed now since then, which is really exciting. And like there's a whole article on the homepage at the moment talking about how it's being worked on and there's a system in place, it's progressing. I think 2 years feels like a long time, but I work in a corporation where I know how long it can take to make decisions and get that decision pushed up the line and actually actioned, and it's very frustrating as a worker sometimes to know that you have this idea, it's great, and it's just not going to be a quick one when you wish it would be. So like it's not the quickest, but it's not still something we're like waiting completely for. Like we can see this progress, and sometimes that's like got a lot of value in itself. Like
that's enough.
What do you think? Is 2 years too long for you?
It's a little long. However, I do completely understand the processes, and changing something like that on a game that, as you said, is 23 years old, I'm sure isn't as simple as
flicking a switch.
Yeah, we want, yeah, exactly, flicking a switch. So I do think that, you know, it's great to start seeing progress, and it does look like they are starting to work on the game from the ground up, which with Habbo 2020 we sort of saw a rushed duplicate version, and it wasn't really thought out. So
a duplicate version that was all custom coded because they couldn't port any of the code. So it was a rushed duplicate version which wasn't thought out because they didn't have time to think of it because they had to spend all that time coding. Like
yes, exactly. So now to see that they are going back to what really is the essentials of Habbo, because they've also updated or have been working on the Habbo imaging for the web version of the avatar, and to see that being worked on finally after 10 years to get some upgrades, it really shows that they are sort of working on the foundation first, which does give me hope that we are headed in a good direction for the game.
Like, one of the things that's interesting is in this Habbo thread by Hannah Yeep, we saw a real comparison of what you could access as a female and what you could access as a male, and not like a crossover. Some of this stuff has been changed. Not all hairstyles, belts and shoes have been changed and made genderless though, which surprises me because I thought that would be the easier stuff. Like the shirts, obviously, you need to add some pixel boobs. Well, you don't need to, but like perhaps that's how they feel. Like they're not going to do that because they're going to do it right. And if that's the case, cool. And the article itself does say that like there's some stuff that's going to need more work. But I think the hairstyles especially, like that's one that surprised me as not being everything's just been ported. It's just only some of them.
Yeah, but I think it's a start. But also, if you look at the history of the game, men have always had significantly less options in terms of hairstyles or, you know, the belts or the shoes. So for them to have, you know, just even a few more at this stage, it's a positive.
Yeah.
And the rest will come with time because obviously it needs more work. The current options, great, wonderful. It would have been wonderful to have these, you know, 15 years ago, but as I mentioned, I think society was in a different time and we've progressed since then.
Yeah, it's definitely promising, and I do hope that we see like a 100% equal access situation by the end of this process, because sure, some things might look in your mind as more gendered towards female or more gendered towards male, but that's not necessarily how other people may identify. Like that witch hair, that really long hair that if you put a hat on glitches out at the back, I see so many guys walking around with that hair, and when I saw it like at first, I assumed it would be seen as a female identifying hair, but the amount of guys I've seen walking around the hotel with that because they're like, no, I have long hair in real life and I want to show that off, and good.
Exactly. Or for me, for example, I want to have the fantasy of an extremely long ponytail. I can't do that in real life, so I put it in the game. So I have this illusion that I have this long, but it goes to show that that just is how you want to express yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a reflection of your real life personality, or it could be your fantasy, what you're feeling on that day in that very moment.
Yeah. And like, there's this whole study around games, online forums, and persona studies, and using that as a place to express yourself, an extension of your personal identity, whether it's a reflection of your real life or just how you want to portray yourself. And so, like, having those options is such a valuable thing to, like, be branching out and giving more, like, availability to. And I just think it's really important to acknowledge that, like, some of our biases that come into play don't help that sort of community that wants to express in a non-traditional way, maybe want to break out of that conforming mold, and being able to recognize that and then make these changes is like very, like, it has so much value.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I still know people that don't agree that boys should wear nail polish, for example. So to see a game recognize that anyone, any gender can wear any piece of clothing or accessory, that's brilliant. I love that, and it actually drew me back into the game. And that sort of, you know, moves me to want to ask, like, do we need to remove the entire gender's function completely? Does it matter what gender we are? We're just an avatar.
I mean, I think that is something to consider. I don't know if that's a path that Habbo will go down, though. I think it's far more likely that they will have sections always. Whether I think that's maybe the right choice or not, I don't know. But I just feel like because it is such an old game, that's going to be a huge change to push. And like
functionality wise,
well, you'd have to probably recode the entire looks editor from scratch, and there could be value in that, don't get me wrong, knowing that they've recoded the looks editor only recently for Unity, and props to the Unity app for mobile phones. I don't use it on my computer, can't even load it on my computer, but on the mobile phone compared to the old app, the looks editor is well and truly leagues beyond what the old app was. That's about all I can get to function in that app at the moment, but that's still a work in progress, right?
Well, yeah, for someone with vision problems, I would love for the editor to be revamped because the color options, I can't see what I'm trying to pick as a color option, so I usually go out with some wacky color and then I'm reminded, oh no, that's not what I was going for. However, I must admit, I haven't used the new modern client, so I don't know if there's an update to it to make
I
it bigger.
think in comparison to the Flash client on or the legacy client on the computer, it's pretty similar, and everything in Unity on the computer, from what I understand, is just tiny. Because when I use the web browser version of it, it's all small and it's really hard. And that's as someone with better vision than you.
Yeah, it's just too small. So to get an update to it,
There's some accessibility issues around that. But I think it makes it unlikely that they're going to recode the looks editor from scratch when they've only just implemented it into Unity recently within the last 3 years. If they did, if we lived in a magical world where they did, it would be so cool to have maybe you've got your eye shapes first, right? And then you go eyelashes or no eyelashes, tick, cross, and that's your, instead of being is it male or female, it's tick or cross. You could have lips, lipstick, no lipstick, tick, cross, some simple little things.
a toggle button
toggle it
to
on
say
and off.
yes or no.
Same with the chest area. Do you want to have a flat chest?
Customize.
Would you like to have a not flat chest? There's your option. It's not male or female. It's how you want it to be visually, and that way you don't have to worry about having two separate look editors. It's just a toggle button. Do you want it? Yes, for this section, but no for that section. That's cool. It works. That's my dream.
It does rein back to the discussion that we're having in real life of gender and what gender do you identify with. And I think in this day and age, it's asking the question, okay, what are your pronouns? How do you identify? And respecting those pronouns. And if you do see someone that is dressed with what society and stigmas call boys' clothes, girls' clothes, colors, I don't think it doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't. As long as you are able to respect that human person as a person, it doesn't matter if their gender is male, but they're wearing a pink crop top. It just doesn't matter anymore.
I will say I'll be at Eurovision next week, and I cannot wait to see so much diversity in clothing styles. It's just gonna be the best. It's gonna be so exciting.
Yeah, we had the winner with the beard. That's completely gender. And that comes back to drag as well. Well, it's just showing, I think, the diverse identities that people have in real life these days. You have all types of, we have drag queens that are mainstream now. You have furries. Jared Leto wore literally a giant furry outfit to the Met Gala. So it's becoming...
and Doja Cat literally dressed as a cat.
As a cat, yeah. So, I mean, we, as growing up, we loved Halloween. It's 2023. Every day is Halloween. Every day is Halloween, and you can dress however you want in the game now. Brilliant. You can express yourself.
So, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is the future of Habbo? Are you happy about having access to more clothes? Are you finally excited to be able to put on high heels as a guy, even if there's only one or two of the high heels on offer out of the 3 default HC ones?
We need more ponytails.
Yeah, what items do you want to see more of in-game? Obviously, we can't make those decisions, but it'd be really awesome to hear. Let us know on Twitter. Use the hashtag Bobbacast Sessions. It's what we're going to be using to,
tweet us.
Up to date. And it's been a really fun restart to this podcast. Hopefully it keeps on
season
going.
2.
If you have any suggestions for future episodes, things you'd like us to cover, you want to come on and have a chat with us, let us know. Just tweet us. Hashtag Bobbacast Sessions. We'll find you with our accounts. And you've been listening to Bobbacast Sessions with Elysse and Josh, also known as LC22
and Vado,
on Habbo.com.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Peace.